Thrilled to be introducing Susan Cabrera this morning. This is actually the fourth time that she's spoken to us. She started back in 2011, and she gave a talk in 2014, and another one in 2016. So this is her fourth talk to us, and they've all been very interesting on very interesting topics. And today's no exception because her topic is humor and your health, and that's two things I love. I love humor and I love health. So I think she's going to connect them somehow. So I'll just read this thing here. Humor plays an important part in our lives, not only because it is enjoyable, but because it contributes to our mental and physical well-being. Our bodies and minds are inextricably connected, which means that our thoughts have an impact on our bodies. Susan Cabrera has an MA in counseling psychology from Stanford with an emphasis in behavior modification. She has been a counselor at the Stanford Institute for Behavioral Counseling and a clinical researcher at the Stanford Department of Psychiatry. Susan's poetry book, Life in the Fast Lane, is available for sale and personal dedication after the forum today. So please give a warm welcome to Susan Cabrera. Okay, you got it.
Thanks, Brian. It's always lovely to be here at the Humanist. You're a great group of folks, very intellectually stimulating, and I know you'll enjoy today's talk on humor and your health. So I would like to start by asking you a few questions, and I'd like you to not answer them out loud. These are just for your own personal use. So first of all, question number one. How would you rate your sense of humor on a scale of 1 to 10? With 1 being not too good, 5 to 6 being average, and 10 being the best. So how would you rate your personal sense of humor? Count from 1 to 10. One of those numbers. How would you gauge yourself on that scale? Can you not hear me? Your sense of humor. That would be your ability to see humor in things, your ability to laugh, your propensity to see the funniness of things. That would be your sense of humor. We have someone who's saying 2. Is that a piece or a 2? Okay. Question number 2. What makes you laugh? I know even the most curmudgeon-y person in here laughs on occasion. What makes you laugh? Question number 3. Do certain people make you laugh? And this doesn't have to be someone you see in person. It could be a television program, an actor or actress. Question number 4. How often do you laugh in a day? And the last question is, have you ever felt, or has someone else told you, oh, lighten up? Or you're too intense, lighten up. So, as Brian was saying, and someone else told me before I came up here, in terms of humor and health, we could all use more humor, and we could all use more health, right? Yeah. So there are some people that just seem to have humor within them. I know a couple of elderly fellows. I don't know how they do this, but when I'm around them and we're having conversation, it could be on any topic, they find something humorous. And I've actually tried to analyze it. I can't figure it out, but I think pointing to someone, I think in my mind it has something to do with intelligence. that people can make that connection really quickly, but also that they have a very positive point of view in certain respects. So I first became interested in the body-mind connection many years ago, and it was mainly because I read a book that some of you may have heard about called Anatomy of an Illness by Norman Cousins. Anyone heard of it? Just a couple of you. Norman Cousins did a considerable amount of traveling. He was a professional person, and he was abroad traveling in Europe and in Russia. And when he was in Moscow, he was in a hotel room that was next to a very busy road that had a lot of diesel trucks going on it. And right next to that was the airport. And the exhaust from the jet airplanes was very tangible. And unfortunately, in breathing all these toxins, he came down with a serious heavy metal disease that was fatal. And people in general died from this, so it was expected that he would die. It started out with a mild nausea, it got worse and worse and worse. By the time he got to the States, he was in the hospital. And he was in great pain. They had to give him a lot of painkillers, and he felt a little better with the painkillers, but not much. So he was going on the predicted downward spiral of becoming more and more ill and becoming weak and then dying. So his personal feeling was that the opiates and other drugs he was receiving were making him, even though they mitigated the pain a little bit, he felt that the toxicity in the pills, you know, all prescriptions have side effects, that toxicity was adding to his mental toxicity, and so he wanted to experiment with something he thought would help him. So he talked with his doctor and he said, "Look, doc, I need to get out of this hospital. I would like to move to a hotel room." And his doctor says, "Well, you can't even walk." He said, "Well, I could have 24-hour nursing care. It'd be a lot cheaper than the hospital. And but I just feel I need to kind of take over my own health here." And his doctor miraculously said, "Okay." No, the guy was going to die anyway. Might as well, let him have this opportunity. So his feeling was, and I'll quote what he said, "I felt that love, hope, faith, laughter, and confidence could have a highly therapeutic effect on my body." So he now is at the hotel. He's got 24-hour nursing care. He's not taking his pain medications anymore. And what he wanted to do was laugh. He wanted to hear funny things, see funny things, and just be immersed in mirth. So back in those days, if you wanted to see a movie, you had to have a projector. This was back in the early 60s. You didn't have a DVD that you could put into a machine. So he got programs that he felt were very funny, like Candid Camera. Anybody remember Candid Camera? Yeah. And the Marx Brothers, I know, they're still really popular. So had this whole cadre of things that he felt would make him laugh. So then they had to train the nurse on how do you use this projector? How do you keep putting these films in? So she was trained in this. Believe me, this was a first for her. So now he's off the medications and he's watching these programs. What he found was, he was very science-oriented. What he found was that 10 minutes of genuine belly laughing, where your whole body gets into it, gave him at least 2 hours of pain-free sleep. He thought, this is better than I thought it was going to be. So he'd go to sleep, pain-free, he'd wake up, guess what, pain again, right? So then he'd ask, when he felt like it, the nurse to put another funny film in. He'd watch it again, he'd laugh for 10 minutes, and he'd have another 2 hours of pain-free sleep. Well, eventually, the pain became less and less, and he actually became well and overcame the metallic disease. So, as he was going through this, he realized, I may be onto something here. So they started doing blood tests before and after his laughing episodes. And they found that indeed there was a detectable and positive influence that the laughter was having on his body. A significant improvement in specifically his sedimentation readings. So after this whole thing happened, he thought it was very interesting, and he thought others might find it interesting, but he was hesitant to write a book about it. And the reason he was hesitant was because he thought, well, maybe other people will try to do this and they'll die, you know. But then he thought, but wait a minute, maybe other people will try to do it and they'll live. So he thought, well, I'm just going to go ahead and write this book. And I'm really thankful that he did. Other emphasis in the book is he had a great faith in vitamin C, and he also talked a lot about the placebo effect and how your mind, if you think something's going to help you, it can help you. So now, these days, there's actually a science to do with laughter and your health, and it's called gelotology. Gelotology, and it's from the Greek root gelos, which means to laugh. So this phrase was coined in 1964 by doctors Edith Traeger and William Fry. So what I'd like to do is to give you a few quotes from some professionals that focus specifically on gelotology. The first is from the fellow who coined the term, and he calls it the physiology of humor. So physiology means psychology and physical combined together. So William Fry from Stanford University founded the Institute of Gerontology. He's published a number of studies on the physiological processes that occur during laughter, and is often cited by people claiming that laughter is equivalent to exercise. Dr. Fry states, quote, "I believe that we do not laugh merely with our lungs, or our chest muscles, or our diaphragm, or as a result of stimulation of our cardiovascular activity. I believe that we laugh with our whole physical being, every fiber, every molecule. I believe that this total participation will eventually be recognized. It is appropriate to conclude that humor, mirth, and laughter are on the side of contributing positively to the maintenance of health and survival from the standpoint of their physiologic effects," unquote. Second person I want to quote is someone who had studied anger and how anger can contribute to heart conditions and heart attacks, and how laughter, what he calls, may be an antidote. So he says, laughter may have similar benefits as aerobic exercise and statin use. So if anybody is not into exercise, you might perk up listening to what he has to say. So Dr. Miller, he's the director of preventive cardiology at University of Maryland in Baltimore. He showed that when people laughed, their major blood vessels dilated, allowing for easier blood flow, which is a surrogate marker for the reduction risk of cardiac events. In his studies, he found that the endothelium of blood vessels, the endothelium is a very delicate lining that all your blood vessels have. So the endothelium of blood vessels responds favorably among patients who are able to laugh. His data, dating back a decade, indicated that when people laugh, their brachial arteries dilate as measured by the brachial artery reactivity test. And when faced with mental stress, those arteries constrict. For example, the participants' blood vessels opened wider when volunteers watched scenes from very funny movies. But the blood vessels tended to constrict when participants watched the graphic violence of dramas, such as Saving Private Ryan. I don't know if any of you have seen that. So when you're watching something like that, your blood vessels are really constricting. He says, quote, "The magnitude of change we saw in the endothelium was a difference that ranged from 30 to 50% in diameter. The endothelium after laughing was consistent and similar to the benefit we might see with aerobic exercise or statin use." Unquote. So Miller recommends 30 minutes a day of 30 minutes of exercise 3 times a week, and 15 minutes of laughter every day on a daily basis for a good vascular system. So that's a goal that we can shoot for. And then the last series I want to quote is from Dr. Joel Goodman. He has a little joke. He says, 7 days without laughter makes 1 week. W-E-A-K. Okay? He says, if there is one overriding criterion necessary in order to have a good sense of humor, it is clearly the ability to laugh at yourself. Laughter reduces stress hormones, boosts the immune system, reduces blood pressure by increasing the vascular blood flow, provides an aerobic workout. In terms of quantifying, laughing 100 times, if you convert that to caloric expenditure, it equals 10 minutes on a rowing machine and 15 minutes on an exercise bicycle. And then lastly, Franz Engelfinger, who's the former editor of the New England Journal of Medicine, said, "I estimate that 85% of all human illnesses are curable by the body's own healing system, and humor clearly plays a very important part in that." So your body has the ability to laugh and has some built-in mechanisms, that chemicals, muscular and so on, that help with this. So I think all of you in here have probably heard of endorphins. Yes? Yes. So endorphins are basically peptide hormones that also serve as neurotransmitters in your system. When you are happy, you are creating endorphins. When you are exercising, you are creating endorphins. Some of you are any runners in here? Wow, no runners. Well, there's something that's commonly... Any walkers? No. People talk about runner's high, or different highs that you get when you're doing certain types of physical activities. These are your endorphins kicking in. Endorphins also kick in when you're in pain or when you have stress. They're like a natural opiate. They connect with your opiate receptors. Years ago, I had the immense privilege of being asked to serve on the Human Subjects Committee for the Addiction Research Foundation, which was headed up by Avram Goldstein. He was one of the pioneers in the research of endorphins. And it's very clear that you can have euphoria through your natural endorphins. And the nice thing is, it's not addictive, so you don't have to go out on the street and buy it. So, are there any downsides to laughter? Well, I had to think a little bit on this one, and I think there are a couple that I came up with. One is that you might laugh so hard your cheeks hurt. Another is you might laugh so hard your ribs are sore. Anybody laugh to the point that it hurt? Yeah. Another downside might be that you laugh at the wrong time. I'm going to give you an example of something that happened to me. I was, in the 80s, I was working with a couple of colleagues, and we decided to take a fun trip to Yosemite together and stay at the Yosemite Lodge. We were really basically roughing it, except for one of... I haven't gotten to the funny part yet. So, we were roughing it, but one of my colleagues wanted to dress up for one night and go to the Ahwahnee Hotel. Any people know about the Ahwahnee Hotel? Right. I think it's called something else now, right? Yeah. Grand Majestic. Anyway, so the Ahwahnee, the majestic Ahwahnee. And we thought, well, okay, well, you know, it takes effort for most women to dress up and put your makeup on and all that. So we thought, oh, we'll suffer through it. So we did. We all brought our pretty dresses. And so we get into the Ahwahnee. It's grand. It's evening. People are there for special occasions, anniversaries, birthdays, people from Hong Kong, people from all over the world here in this grand, grand place. So we order the food, and somehow we got the giggles. If you don't want to get the giggles in a place like that. So we thought, okay, we got to get this under control. Well, by gosh, we couldn't get it under control. We just couldn't stop laughing. So we got to the point where we couldn't have any eye contact with each other, because if we did, we would just laugh up. So we had to be having our faces down toward our food the whole time. And we couldn't really even talk to each other because it was very scary. And then the dessert came. Now, the dessert, for some reason, had this little marzipan phallic-looking thing sticking out of it. And that was the end. It was just, we were laughing, trying to laugh quietly, but all three of us had tears. We were literally in tears. And next thing I knew, one of them was passing a Kleenex to me, but we couldn't look at each other, right? So we're crying. And that was an example of where laughter is not appropriate and can get you. I just think about that. It just feels stressful even to think about it. So most of us, I don't think we've had that bad of an experience with laughter, but it's something that I hope if that ever happens to me again, I'll have more control over it. So what I want to do is practice some laughing together. So what we're going to do is I'm going to ask three of you if anyone has what they think is a really good joke or a really lousy joke. Could be a horrible joke. Could I have raise your hands if you have one? Okay, there's one. Okay, now 2 and 3. 2? Green? Okay, and how about a third? Okay, I've got 3 guys. 3 guys with jokes. Okay, so what we're going to do is maybe we can get the other mic for when they, I don't know where the other mic is.
Right here.
Oh, okay, good. So these brave fellows, one at a time, they're going to tell their joke. And we are going to think it's the funniest joke we've ever heard, okay? And we're just going to laugh out loud as hard as we can because we're going to be practicing how to give exercise to our organs and our whole system. So, which gentleman would like to go first? Here we go. Okay. Hold on a second. You need the mic. Okay, now you're going to tell your joke, and we're going to think it's extremely funny and laugh. All right, here you go.
It refers to the New Testament. What would have happened if the 3 wise men were women? First, they would help each other deliver a child. Second, they would know how to make a casserole. And third, if they got lost, they would ask for directions.
Okay, okay, let's do our belly laugh. Isn't that the funniest joke we ever heard? Oh my gosh. Feel it all the way down to your toes. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. All right, let's see if we can top that. Who's our second jokester?
This is a real groaner show, so it should really give you practice laughing
All right.
when it's not funny. Okay, so 2 antennas met, fell in love, and decided to get married. The ceremony wasn't much, but the reception was excellent.
Yeah. What a funny joke! Oh my gosh! Let's laugh! A great reception! Thank you. All right, how about our third joke?
Well, I'm just going to describe a situation that was, I'll just describe it. Some of you remember Garrison Keillor before he fell from grace. That was back in the 1970s. He was actually a disc jockey on public radio in Minnesota. And he came to the college where I was on the staff, maybe 150 people there. Keillor, you know, is well over 6 feet tall. At that time he was very slender, had a full black beard, his usual round, big glasses, wearing black overalls with a black Smokey the Bear hat. This was before the days of all the electronics, and he had a screen and an overhead projector. On the projector, on the screen that projected there was a lot of kind of mechanical drawings, circles and things. Well, it was mechanical drawings up there. And in fact, through most of the lecture, he didn't crack a smile, he didn't grin, and the audience was rocking back and forth, holding their sides. His lecture was an illustrated, non-erotic lecture on the penis.
Okay. All right, let's laugh. That was a surprise ending. And so many falling from grace, as you say, Paul. So, let's think more about the physiology of laughter. And what I'd like, you've had your laughs, you've had your good laughs to the extent that you could. Now what I want you to do is laugh for nothing. And this is something that you can do on your own, because what we're laughing at is something that our mind is processing. There's no one coming up and putting an electrode on us, making us laugh. It's our mind that is triggering this. So our mind can also trigger us to laugh without having anything to laugh about, right? We can choose to laugh. So what I want us to do is I have a second clock here. I'm going to ask you to laugh for 30 seconds, which doesn't seem like a lot, but you'll see it is. And what I'd like you to do is actually put your hands on your belly so that you can get a sense for how your laughter is affecting your internal organs. All of your internal organs, and as one of the persons I quoted before said, Dr. Fry, it's actually affecting your whole circulatory system as well. So let's put your hands on your belly, and at the count of 3, you're just going to start laughing a good belly laugh, and I'm going to have you do this for 30 seconds. Are you ready? 1, 2, 3. Out loud. Loud! Don't stop! Okay. Only 30 seconds. Oh, we have a star here. Here's a star. Here's the loudest. Well, I'll tell you. How did that feel? Anybody? Good. Good. I mean, don't you feel happier? You were laughing about nothing. And part of it is kind of fun up here watching you laugh, to tell you the truth. It's just such a positive feeling. And while you were doing that, you were conscious, because I asked you to, of your physical bodies. Anybody want to explain any feeling that they had while they were doing that? Go ahead.
Makes me feel dizzy.
Dizzy! Oh my gosh! Maybe your blood from your brain distributed to other parts of your body. Yeah. Yes?
I have some tears in my eyes.
Yeah, tears in your eyes. So when we laugh, for some reason, it kind of, if we laugh a lot, it can make us cry. Anybody here laugh till they cry sometimes? Yeah. I mean, what is that? It's stimulating us to the point that we can have tears of joy as well as tears of sadness. Yes?
What's the medical term? Lacrimate or something?
Of crying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
There's a medical term.
Anybody know the medical term for crying?
Lacrimogen means to make some cry, but I don't know if that's related.
I don't know. So what? Tell me the word again.
Lacrimogen
Lacrimogen?
generates tears.
Ah. Lacrimogen. All right. Well, anyway, that's a guess. But when you've reached the point that you've got tears of laughter, you really know that you've stimulated the humor in your body, the human response in your body. Anyone else have any physical feeling? Yes.
Laughing at the idea of laughing for 30 seconds for no other reason
Yeah.
as an experiment.
Well, isn't that interesting that you could choose to laugh? You could set an egg timer and choose to laugh for a minute. Sit down and just start laughing. And as I quoted about the equivalence of exercise and calorie burning, do you want to row for 10 minutes or do 100 laughs a day? That type of thing. It's a real translation there. Yes, sir.
I have to confess that I don't know how to laugh. I'm an oddball. However, I do tell jokes. And in order to encourage other people to laugh, I have learned to fake a chuckle. And that releases them. They do laugh. But I don't know how.
Well, since you're a good joke teller, would you like to tell us a joke?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. I got a smile out of you. Hey, see, you can laugh. Okay, the gentleman behind you?
As you discovered the Awani, laughter is very contagious.
Yes.
I think we experienced that.
Yes, that's true. It is contagious, like yawning, right? Yeah. Have you ever been to a movie and they're what I would call a good audience, because they laugh, it's comedy, that they laugh a lot, and you've seen the same movie another time and it was a dud audience that hardly laughed at all? It really makes a difference, doesn't it? It is contagious. So one of my very favorite movies of all times is the Marx Brothers movie, A Day at the Races. Anybody familiar with that? The character that Groucho plays in that is Dr. Hackenbush. And he's a veterinarian pretending to be a human doctor. It's just so funny. And it's a quintessential performance of his. And I read that he said that he felt that was his best performance of all time. If any of you are interested, check it out. So someone else had their hand up. Yes.
Sometimes I'm watching TV and I get a little sleepy and something funny comes up, it wakes me up.
Something funny comes up because it's louder and you hear it, it wakes you up, or what?
Just the humor.
Oh, just humor. Yeah, because you start laughing and that kind of stimulates your system. Yeah, it's true. Yes.
On the other hand, will Trump call the early death of liberals?
Will Trump call the early death of liberals?
Sure. That's not very like a humor.
I'm not sure what that sentence means.
What are you talking about? You're talking about things that aren't nice.
Causing that.
Trump is not very humorous unless you, so the liberals will be having a tough time surviving.
Ah, I see, because Trump is not humorous, so I gotcha. Okay, thank you for explaining that. Yes.
Why some people why some people are more ticklish than the other, and why, when you tickle a person, why do they laugh and not cry or react differently?
Right. So she's asking, why do people laugh and not cry when they're tickled, and why do some people not laugh when they're tickled? So my friend here who doesn't laugh, now you're smiling. Now, I don't want to say wipe that smile off your face, but are you ticklish? Can someone tickle you? And no, you're not. No, not even tickle your feet? No. Yeah.
We'll try.
Yeah. So tickling, I tried one time to, when someone was tickling me, to use my mind to say, this does not tickle. And it really helped a little bit, but not all the way. But I think that if you tickled someone to the point of mental distraction, it could be like a torture. So there is a certain tolerance that we have when something pleasurable becomes not pleasurable. Anyone else have a, yes?
I have a problem that I'll sometimes say something that I think is funny, and I guess it's funny, and nobody else thought it was funny, or they take it serious, they don't realize I'm making a joke. And when I was laughing, my stomach hurt and all like that.
Okay. Well, you've got some muscle buildup to do there in your tummy and your back. Well, what she was saying was that sometimes she makes a joke and people don't laugh, or not necessarily a joke, but just makes a comment that she thinks is funny. And so not everybody has the same sense of humor. Some of us have a very dry sense of humor. And those of us who don't understand that type of humor think, well, what's she talking about, right? So, yes, go ahead.
Speaking of dry sense of humor, there was an incident with William F. Buckley, who's normally not considered someone humorous. He gave a lecture at a college, and one student at the end said, "What does exiguous mean?" He's known for his big words. He would say, "It means nugatory. Good night."
Yeah, right. That's like a friend of mine who made me a T-shirt that says "eschew obfuscation." Yeah, right. Yeah. So, so that means avoid confusion. So, yes.
Could you comment on? It said that some people laugh at anything, okay, and then there's other people that react to more sophisticated irony, things like that, which is a whole different level. So do you have any thoughts or commentary about those distinctions?
The question was the difference between a more sophisticated laughter than someone who laughs at anything. I think part of it has to do with the person and part of it has to do with the content. A person who will laugh at anything would also laugh at the more sophisticated, and I believe that those types of persons are like the person I talked about in the beginning who finds humor in just about anything. They will just look at them and they'll laugh or say a joke that's half-baked and they'll, out of kindness, laugh with you. And then there are others who feel that certain humor is very base. You know, like maybe the Three Stooges or something like that. That, you know, it's just crass and there's nothing funny to it. I think it has to do with your personality and also your ability to interpret. Now, if I were with my friend here who says that she's saying funny things and people don't laugh at her jokes, I might be able to muster up a little laugh for her, you know, just out of kindness, knowing that she was trying to please a group or, you know, make a funny comment.
They think I'm serious. They not only don't find it funny, they know I'm joking.
Right. It's probably so dry and so out there that they don't understand the connection. So what I want to do now is just get some questions or comments from you, and in particular, I'm interested to know if any of you have had a personal experience with humor and your health, that laughter helped you or something funny helped you come out of a darkness, be it a depression or a physical illness. If anyone has one of those stories, it would be great to share with each other. So I will just open up to questions and comments. Yes?
Well, this is...
Oh, hold on a second. The mic's coming.
The mic, okay.
The mic.
Where's Mike?
The mic's coming.
Thank you, Mike.
There it is.
Well, this is something that I ran into a few weeks ago in one of our libraries. It's quite a beautiful picture outside. It's called The World's Very Best Opera for Kids in English. And the first one, it's a big turn-on of laughter for me, which is Rossini's The Barber of Seville. Okay? And then the first song is Figaro, Largo al Factotum. And it kind of reminds me of my father, because my father's second last name was Figueroa. And some of his friends called him Figaro. And then many years later, some friends also called me Figaro. So I recommend this. Some libraries have it. Remember, it's the world's very best opera for kids in English. So you don't have to learn Italian to listen to Rossini, and you don't have to be a kid either.
Would you like to sing something from Figaro for us?
Well, I'm not a good singer, but maybe they have, maybe it's short. Maybe somebody can play it somewhere.
Okay.
It's a CD.
Ah, all right. Very good. Yes.
I have a question and a comment. Maybe
Okay.
I'll make the comment first and then the question.
Okay.
When you mentioned the problems with laughing, one of them being wrong time, if it makes you feel any better, I don't think laughing at Awani is the worst. The thought that crossed my mind was funeral.
Oh.
Or a serious speech like a sermon or any kind of a serious speech. So those would be a lot worse than laughing at Awani.
Okay.
And as for the problems with laughing, I was curious. You did not mention wrinkles. What about wrinkles?
Ah, well,
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, you know, you're absolutely right. I had a friend who I've known since we were 7 years old, and when we get together, it's really a laugh fest. So she lives out of state, but she came in, and 5 of us went out to dinner. We were laughing so much. It wasn't at a special place, so we were just laughing. But I noticed that my cheeks were hurting, and the next morning I noticed I had more wrinkles. I literally had created some wrinkles, but I feel that laugh lines are kind of a pretty thing from my point of view. I mean, maybe frown lines not so good, but laugh lines, you know, I kind of think that's a sign of a life well lived. Yes.
Yeah, I don't have a question. I just made up a joke.
Oh, okay.
Okay. The Humanist has a rebuttal to the mass organized by the Christian Church. They call up the Higgs boson to give them the mass. If you know physics, you'll know what I meant.
Okay.
Higgs boson gives the mass to any, we got the mass because of Higgs boson.
I had 2 comments. One was advice my mother had given me long ago, which was, don't marry a woman who doesn't have crow's feet.
Oh, your mother told you that?
Yes, smart woman.
I've never heard of that before.
And the other one, when we were talking about inappropriate laughter, one of my favorite Bob Newhart shows was the funeral of Chuckles the Clown, when his wife Mary broke into uncontrollable laughter. And the minister said it's an appropriate response to his funeral. He would have loved it.
Oh, that's great. Yes, got some more.
Hi. I want to share something I got on Facebook.
Could you speak into the mic? Thank you.
Hello? Okay. I want to share something I got from Facebook the other day. It's a picture of Trump shaking hands with the president of Palestine, saying, Palestinians recognize Texas as part of Mexico.
Oh, oh my gosh.
But
that's pretty funny.
A comment I want to say is that since Trump, basically, all the comedy shows at night became so popular, and the next day they're in the news. And I think that it's kind of a society need for laugh, because during the day it's monstrosities, and then at night you can relieve that anger through that laugh. I think it is a social service.
Right, yeah, there's a lot of fodder for the comedy routines these days. Yes.
Yeah. I was just going to mention, we used to have an executive director named Bill Jacobson for a long time, and one of the things he was known for was when 2 people were starting to disagree about something or there was some kind of conflict, he would make some kind of joke, and he would start laughing about it, and everybody else would laugh, and it would sort of just diffuse the tension. And so it seems to me laughter can also be used to reduce the likelihood of major conflicts and arguments.
Yes. Well, when we say laughter lightens us up, it literally seems to unravel the knots of tension mentally and physically. And really, you know, we can't say, here's the mind, here's the body. It's one system that we're dealing with. So, but that was very, I won't say clever, but probably very wise of him to bring the humor in. Mm-hmm.
Yes, I kind of grade humor, celebrities. Red Skelton is kind of silly. The jocular back and forth is Bob Hope and Bing Crosby, but 11 above 10 is very intelligent and funny as hell is Victor Borge.
Yeah, Victor Borge, very, very funny guy, and talented musician also.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Question, I've heard this talked about many times, but I don't recall if anybody came up with an answer, and it has to do with something very inappropriate to laugh at, and that is somebody walking up a slippery, icy sidewalk and falling down. And I would always laugh at that, and I see it always laughed at, and yet inside I'm saying, why would I laugh at somebody being hurt? It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense, but it's still funny, isn't it? Anybody who's kind of even people tripping and falling. I mean, I think as we get older, we become more sensitive about these things because the bones aren't quite as healthy as they used to be, and we don't repair ourselves too well. But when we see people trip and fall, unless we know that they've hurt themselves, it can have a humorous aspect to it because you're not coordinated, and think of the Laurel and Hardy movies, trying to move the piano up the stairs. I mean, they're getting hurt all the time, and we think it's the funniest thing in the world. We're just laughing our heads off. And you get a prize for being the star laugher, by the way, when we did our ha-ha. Yeah, you're welcome. Okay.
One of the funniest things I ever saw was the Hallelujah chorus with mute monks. And they were leaping up and holding up signs with the words. And they, hallelujah. It was so funny.
I've never heard of such a thing. That is so funny.
I want to take a stab at the idea about why we might laugh at inappropriate situations. Laughter is a great way to lower our anxiety or fear, and also the mirror neurons working, like when we recognize behavior in another person that we have had ourselves, so we immediately have an emotional association to that behavior that we're witnessing. And something like slipping and falling, how embarrassing to do that in public. And I'm wondering if seeing somebody else do that might trigger our own emotional associations with those experiences. So on the one hand, we're laughing inappropriately. On the other hand, we're truly identifying with that other person.
And I think we've all heard of nervous laughter, right? That might fall into that category. Yes.
Years ago, my sister and I were doing dishes at our vacation place, and we were just laughing. I don't remember what we were laughing about to start with. We must have been something, and we kept laughing and laughing and laughing. And my aunt was getting tired of this, even though she's a very humorous person, and so she started having us multiply, and at one point we just started laughing again when we got like 3 times blah 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 until we got to number 243. Who knows? And so she said something, well, I guess this is a really funny number, and so she tried it out on other people and said it went over like a lead balloon.
You had to be there for that one, right?
But it was an attempt to get us to stop laughing.
Right, it didn't work. Yeah. See, sometimes when you get the giggles, everything's hilarious.
I just wanted to point out that our closest relative, the chimpanzee, is capable of laughter. They tell lousy jokes, I imagine.
Yeah, right. Mostly about bananas. But that is true, yes.
I have a totally different questions. Like, I was just reading this morning, like what happened when people use, like, in the school system, especially bully systems, there will be a section of kids who laugh at someone who doesn't fit into that picture. And also in our society today, especially, people laugh using sex, gender, like whether you're a woman and then pick out specific part of the woman's body or something, and also skin colors, race. So what is your comment on those kind of situations where people laugh, but it's a very derogatory laugh?
Right. Well, that's absolutely true. I think bullying is it's a word that's become all too common. I mean, it's always existed, but I kind of think like maybe there's more bullying than there used to be, although I know it's always existed. That's the type of laughter that is derogatory, as you say. And we know that it's... there's a phrase that someone says that hurt people hurt people. In other words, people who are hurting get pleasure out of hurting someone else. That's hard to realize when you're watching someone be bullied for some reason. But a person who's going to inflict that sort of unkindness on someone else has something inside them that's not feeling good. Now, I think most of us in this room have been in love at some point with a person or your puppy or your child or something. That in love feeling that you have, you've got the endorphins flowing. When you're in that state of mind, you don't tend to be an unkind person. As a matter of fact, you tend to see things through rose-colored glasses. Like if someone's unkind to you, oh, they probably didn't really mean that. No, you err on the safe side of looking at them with kind eyes. So there can be even stand-up comic humor that's maybe racist or sexist. There are many comics who are very sarcastic also, and even, I would say, mean. They intend to be mean and to tell mean jokes. So that has to do with people's personalities and maybe their own hurts inside. That's part of what human beings do. There are mean people. There are sarcastic people. We, to the best of our ability, try to, be kind and understanding to others and not inflict that on others. But humor can be dark in a negative way.
Any comment on cartoons?
Comment on cartoons? I love cartoons. I was listening, I don't know if any of you listen to NPR. I love it. I listen to it all the time. And they were talking about the cartoons in the olden days, which wasn't too long ago, when you used to get the physical newspaper on your doorstep, and they would have the cartoons. And people would go straight to the cartoon pages, right? It was pages and pages of cartoons of these wonderful cartoonists who many of them have passed on. But their humor can be put in a lot of different ways, and that's sort of a little bit of a dying art, I think, from what it used to be in terms of the newspaper days.